I'll read the three different short passages that I have today, and then I'm going to preach mainly about John. We'll have to stand up, and Sonia will put those on the screen, I think. Is that okay? Okay. Casey, Sonia, we are in good hands today. Thank you for that. All right. First text today is from the Gospel of John. Jesus talking to the disciples. 6 verses. He says, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, that where I am you may be also. And you know the way to where I am going." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way?" Jesus said to him, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Okay, we got 2 verses in Matthew. Going back a couple books. Chapter 7, Jesus talking again. "Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few." In one verse from Acts and Paul, chapter 4, verse 12. I know it's on the screen. "And there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved." The word of the Lord for the people of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. This is the 3rd week of our series, Asking for a Friend. You know when you don't really want to know that you want to know something, so you ask somebody something embarrassing or maybe deep or something that maybe you should know, like asking for a friend. We've all done it. Sometimes it's just kind of a joke, people know, and sometimes we really want to hide what we're asking. I've done that so many times, and I know you all have too in one way or another. So today's question is Jesus really the only way to heaven? I know I might be like, well, yeah, we know that, but you'd be surprised. There's just a lot of things going on with that right now, even in churches. So to start us off, stop me if you've heard these things before, from people or maybe you felt them yourself. I believe in something more. I feel like there's got to be something more. I believe in a creator. I believe in an afterlife of some kind. Has anybody ever heard these statements before? Or maybe you feel this way or have at certain different times in your life. Maybe you align with all 3 of them and you're not really sure. And that's okay. I'm glad that you're here today. In John 14, Jesus is talking to the disciples. And this is a very pivotal time because things are about to change. He's addressing the disciples in the upper room. And this is just before Jesus, is arrested. Judas had already been dismissed. That had already happened. The Last Supper had already happened. So this is kind of in the Passion narrative time frame. Not kind of, it is. He uses this time to provide the remaining 11, Judas is gone, comfort. And they needed it because Judas really shocked them. He left, leaving the way that he did, showing his true colors, showing himself as Satan, posing as Satan himself. That has to have the rest, the other 11. Can you imagine? They've done life with Judas, the rest of them for so long. That just when you think you know somebody, and then they show you that they're not who you thought they were. So with that, does life have anybody else feeling a little bit shaken today? Could anybody else use some comfort today? Maybe some rest from the world and all the obligations that we have and just all the things going on and all the different pathways to heaven. Maybe this one speaks a little bit more to you, thinking about Judas. Maybe somebody in your life has shown who they truly are recently, and not necessarily in a good way. You thought they were close. You thought they were somebody you could trust, but Turns out they're not. Maybe that's more where you're at. Well, the world of the disciples was about to be further shattered, as we know, and yet they were having a hard time, with what went on with Judas. So it's a good reminder this morning that we are never promised that things are going to stay as they are right now. There's things that we all enjoy about right now, today, right now. There's things that we love about our comfort, and just so many more things. There's no promise that those things are going to stay. And for the disciples, they only had just a little bit of time while Jesus was still with them in bodily form. The disciples were about to be bewildered, confused, and riddled with anxiety because events were about to transpire. Anticipating this, Jesus spoke to comfort them. Really at a time, one of the closest 12 just betrayed Jesus, showed himself as Satan. Really at a time they should maybe be comforting Jesus comforting them. Anticipating the difficult things that are coming in this life for all of us, may the words of Jesus speak to us today. Jesus says in 14a, and if you can, I know, go back and forth. You don't have to, but you can. Thank you. Jesus says in 14a, verse 1a, first part of it, let not your hearts be troubled. Let not your hearts be troubled about all the things that you don't know the answer to. How many times have you had trouble falling asleep because you just can't stop thinking about something? In this life, there's a lot of stuff we don't know the answer to. We know because we have the ability to look back. The 12 that were with Jesus did not have this ability. They didn't know what was coming. We know what Jesus was about to endure. But they didn't know that. And it was, again, the disciples who should have been lending support to Jesus, but instead, he supported the disciples spiritually and emotionally, which reminds us that following Jesus requires us to put aside our own needs to help others. And I just think about, I don't know, maybe this is a good time. Mohammed, we talked about you today. We love you. We know that you're watching from Kenya right now. Yeah, he's on every week. It's just the coolest thing. So hi, Mohammed. Hi, everybody watching us today. Today's the day. But I think about Mohammed in Paris and how they opened up, and again, I'm not exactly sure if it's their home, or opened up this ministry to bring in these children that have been affected by these horrible things in Kenya. And when I say that following Jesus requires us to put aside our own needs to help others, I'm sure that wasn't easy. I know, Mohammed, that you guys had so many sacrifices and still are in the process of trying to take in these girls. And I talked briefly about the story last week about the man that I met at Sunshine, and it was just the smallest example. I was too concerned about all the ways that I felt, and I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I was standing at my distance, and Jessica had the hat on that says, pray. If you weren't at the lake service, keep wearing your shirts that talk about Jesus, even the funny ones, because it gets people talking. He said, I see your hat says pray on it, and it started this whole conversation. And this man had been told he was a mistake his whole life by the people that love him, by the people that are supposed to have his back. They told him he was a mistake. And you could tell that this man, and I'm not going to retell the whole story, but you could tell this man was carrying that burden, believing that he was a mistake. He believed that about himself. If you tell yourself something enough, you're going to end up believing it. If somebody else tells you that thing to reinforce what you already feel, that's a heavy burden to carry. That's not a burden that we were ever meant to carry. And this man, you could just tell that he would weighed down by this for years and years and years, believing that he really was a mistake. It's a good reminder for us that it only takes one, not every time, it's not magic, there's no magic wand here, but it may only take one conversation to change somebody's life or to open them up to a conversation. And the question I guess I have today is, are you willing to have that conversation? To put aside your needs, your feelings, your desire? Are you willing to sit in silence with somebody because you don't know what to say? Second part of verse 1, Jesus says, believe in God and believe also in me. In other words, the curiosity that many people have these days, it's a thing because we're getting smarter. We've got access to more information, and more people are realizing that there's got to be something else. They're curious. I hear it all the time and I'm saying all the time, like, what does that even mean? But I do hear it, and I'm sure you guys do too. And that is a start. That could be a pathway to a conversation. It can open the door, but I believe in something more. I believe in a creator. I believe in an afterlife of some kind. It's not enough. Jesus says in verse 2, in my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? Sometimes someone's presence in our life isn't as long as we would like it to be. And I'm thinking about two things when I say that. Judas, but he showed himself who he was. So therefore, when somebody does that, when somebody shows you who they are, believe it. Right? We've heard that before. But I'm thinking more along the lines of the disciples having Jesus in their midst in bodily form. Sometimes someone's presence in our life isn't as long as we'd like it to be, but it's still to our advantage. Even though it hurts, we miss what used to be. When we look back, we can see that there was many blessings, even though it didn't last as long as we'd hoped, or we didn't know something different was coming. This was the case for the disciples. And Jesus says our heavenly home is being prepared, and Jesus has promised to return. In a general curiosity, and maybe this is nobody in here, but I know that you know somebody that has this kind of general curiosity that is willing to have a conversation if you were willing to be vulnerable. A general curiosity about an afterlife is not enough. While I was writing this, I heard a commercial. I just heard it. You know how you just hear things? Sometimes the littlest noise distracts me. And sometimes I can... Anybody else like that? Can be hyper-focused. Some people I know are hyper-focused no matter what. I don't know, not me. But anyway, I heard this commercial. It said, while we don't know, the only thing we can be sure of is it will be absolutely fantastic. This commercial played. Well, I heard it more than once. And I know what it is now because I saw it later again. It was a 60s or 70s clip of somebody, and it was a Starlink commercial. Like, think about Starlink. You could get internet wherever you're at. You can get internet in the middle of the Pacific on a ship, like a canoe. It's just an amazing thing. And again, it said, while we don't know, the only thing we can be sure of is it will be absolutely fantastic. Jesus says there will be a rapture at the end. There will be a rapture of the saints at the end of the age. In our minds, I've had conversations with people, I've wondered about this. We love to overcomplicate everything. Our understanding of time is not God's understanding of time. That's really all you need to remember. So what does that mean? Where is my loved one now? Are they just in this kind of like blissful state, this dreamlike state? There's many interpretations of that, but don't let your understanding of time overcomplicate what that means. God transcends time. We will never be able to understand completely what that means. All we need to know, and again, what is he saying? Jesus saying that there will be a rapture of the saints at the end of the age. In other words, believers, all we need to know, stop overcomplicating it. God does not look at time the way that you do. He transcends time. All that you need to know is believers will be taken from earth to live in heaven. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to worry about. Jesus says to the disciples, those who die will come to live with me. I've been asking this a lot lately. I'm going to ask it again. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Those who die will come to live with me. The world tells us a lot of things. A lot of things. So many things. Obtain earthly wealth, acquire things, gain followers, climb the ladder. So far, I've been stuck at different times in my life in all of these things. Work 50-plus hours a week. For most people, I mean, just being honest about it, for most people at a job that you don't even like. You guys know how many people are working jobs that they hate? Why? This could be over any moment, at any second, as Jesus talking to the disciples about how many things are going to change. It could end at any moment. Why are you working a job that you hate? I know you got to put food on the table. But maybe there's something else out there that Jesus is calling you to do. And I'm just thinking about Mohammed and Paris that we talked about today and the way that they opened up their lives to this ministry. There's other things that they could be doing. Mohammed, there's other things that you could be doing. But you understand that Jesus has called you to minister to these hurting girls in your town. and country. Unhappy? Too bad. Suck it up. And I know there's another, this 30-year-old tape that's in the Sunday school room is just, it's not doing it anymore for me. There's a whole other school of thought there too, because there's, search for happiness and seek out happiness and all that too, that the world tells us. But again, for what? It could all be over tomorrow. What are we doing? It could all be over tomorrow. Then what? None of the stuff the world tells us will matter anymore anyway, and all that matters is what's to come. And like the commercial, my Bible says, no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard what God has prepared for those who love him. And that's what resonated me with that commercial. He's talking about Starlink. Who cares, right? Cool. Yeah, it's cool. I could use the Wi-Fi at 36,000 feet. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It could all be over tomorrow. And he said on that commercial, we don't know, but the only thing that we know is it will be absolutely fantastic. And that's when I think about 1 Corinthians 2:9. No eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard what God has prepared for those who love him. So if you're on the fence, bet somebody in here is on the fence. Bet somebody watching is on the fence. If you know somebody who is, if you have somebody in your life that you've been wanting to talk to, that needs to be talked to, who says, I believe in something more, I believe in a creator, I believe in an afterlife of some kind. Again, people are smarter now. Because of all this Starlink technology stuff that we have, we understand there has to be something more. There's more people curious now. I'm just saying, I don't really know if this is even true. Maybe it's just that we hear it more because we're all connected. Who knows? But people are curious. People are searching for something else. Maybe it's because, you know what else was cool, guys? Let me just finish that thought, though. Maybe it's because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired and chasing around the things that the world tells them will give them happiness, only to find it doesn't make them happy. On the flight last night coming back, the row right behind us, two guys were talking about Jesus for over half an hour. It was the coolest thing I've ever heard. I mean, this is the coolest thing you've ever heard. But it was so cool. It was so cool. They were just talking back and forth about Jesus. One of them was probably in his 50s. The other one was in his 30s. They came back from France. I mean, I was eavesdropping on their whole conversation, right? They just came back from overseas. They didn't know each other. Two people, they didn't know each other because I eavesdropped enough to know that they didn't know each other, trust me. But they had in common, one had come from France and one had come from somewhere else in Europe. And they talked about Jesus for half an hour. They talked about how much they love Jesus and how much the world needs Jesus. And it was just really cool to listen to. More and more people are becoming comfortable with talking about Jesus. I think that's true. But also more and more people are curious. So what's holding you back? Are you worried that people are going to change the way they feel about you? They will. They will. That they'll act differently around you? They will. But who cares? This life could end at any time. Worried you might be wrong? Maybe there's nobody in here that's worried about these things, but I bet somebody in your contact list, somebody who you make frequent contacts with, who you've known for a really long time, does feel this way. If you're worried you're wrong, and if you're wrong, let's just play this out for just a minute. Let's say that there is no heaven. There's no such thing. Jesus was just a good person. Since it's basically been proven by even non-Christians that Jesus did walk the earth, right? We have, again, near proof that even by non-Christians I'm talking here. Almost everybody believes that Jesus did walk the earth. Maybe he was just a good person. Let's believe that for just a minute. There's nothing else beyond this life. When you die, you wouldn't know the difference anyway, right? It wouldn't matter. Because if that's true, doesn't the screen just go blank? Why not take a step in faith? What's the point in living this life for yourself? You're not going to know the difference anyway, if that's true, which is not. But if you think and if you insist on doing it your way, it would just be over. Or maybe you're one of those people that, well, I don't really believe that because I believe that there's something more. I believe in a creator. I believe in an afterlife of some kind. Go ahead and put up the slides. Go put up the slides. Go to the conference. Of those scenarios that I believe in something more, I believe in a creator, I believe in an afterlife of some kind, what does that even mean after you die? Nobody could answer. I mean, I've never actually polled people, but I wonder what they think that means after they die. Because the people that believe in nothing just believe the screen goes black. And if the screen just goes black, who cares? You're not going to know the difference anyway. But if that happens and it turns out that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late then. If you're right and the screen goes black, it's just going to be over and it's not going to matter anyway. But in the event that you're not right and you find out too late, there's not going to be anything that you can do. We have today. We still have time. We're all going to die someday. Which road are you on? It doesn't require a password. It doesn't require an access point, prior knowledge, a clean slate. Jesus gives us that clean slate. There's nothing in your past that is so bad that cannot be brought to Jesus for forgiveness. Again, we talked about this last week. All that requires is us turning away from our old sinful ways. Okay, but back to my scenario. So the screen just turns black. It doesn't matter. It's over. So I'm just going to live this life for myself. But what if you're wrong? What if the Bible's right and Jesus is the only way to heaven? Again, I might not be talking to anybody in here, but somebody that you know. At that point, it would be too late. If the skeptical person or the unbeliever is right, that the screen just goes black, but if that same skeptic or unbeliever is wrong, again, it's too late. So in other words, make the decision now while you still can. Because Jesus says things are coming, things are going to change, events are happening, and soon it won't be the same anymore. This is a true story. This is exactly what a believer friend of mine, who I still think about him a lot. Jessica and I were just talking about, because we went on a trip 20 years ago with him. He told me so many things about Jesus that I didn't know. When I was that curious person that thought, I don't know, maybe it does really go black. I don't know. It could. And he told me so many things about Jesus early in my faith walk. And he was working on a friend of ours when I worked at the call center. Some of you heard this story before, but it was a long time ago, and I'm going to tell it again. Short version of it. And he worked on this guy who was an atheist. He proclaimed himself an atheist. And he kept telling him about Jesus. And he said, so-and-so, what do you think happens when you die? And I can still hear this person saying, he said, I don't know, it just goes black. Kept working on him, telling him about Jesus, asking him different questions, a little bit here and there, poked him a little bit, with questions. And one day he was leaving for a pretty big surgery that he was going to have, and he was nervous about it, and it was a big deal. And my friend was talking to him like he always does about, what do you think? You think it's worth, a thought that, what if it is real? He could just kind of trying to calm his nerves, but also get him thinking. Well, that Friday afternoon when he left, that was the last time we ever saw that coworker. He was in his 20s. And it happened. There was complications in his surgery, and he died on the operating table. Or shortly after. I don't know all the details, but he died either during or right after. And all I could think about, I still think about it all the time, 20 years later, probably 15 years later, is when he asked him, what do you think happens when you die? And he said, I don't know. I think it just goes black. But that question had been asked to him a lot of times, and I just wonder, since I don't know, there's a lot of things about this life we don't know, I wonder if there was time. I wonder if before he went into surgery, he thought, all right, I'm just going to give this a chance because I'm really nervous about the surgery. We don't know. Sometimes it only takes one conversation. Sometimes it might take so many you don't even remember. But it's always worth it. But we don't know when we don't have another chance. And that was the last chance that my friend would have with our other friend. In the same way, the comfort that we enjoy is coming to an end also. And it's going to be sooner than we want. And it's going to be sooner than we hope. And I'm not necessarily talking about dying. Yes, I am talking about dying, but I'm also talking about other comforts in this life that we enjoy way more than we should. The Bible says, and this one might hit you a little bit hard, but devastation, it's a big word. It's not a big word, but it's a scary word. Devastation is coming to those who are in love with this world. There's a lot of people in love with this world. A lot of people in love with their lives. Jesus finishes the passage by answering Thomas's confusion, which is a good reminder that, the disciples are doubting. These are the people that spent their time with Jesus. Every day. Confused, doubting, questioning. So if you're any of those things, it's okay. Give yourself grace. Stop waiting for it to click. Sometimes, some things, maybe I'm just giving you to talk to the person that you need to talk to about. Stop waiting for everything to click, everything to be right. Oh, we're going to have kids when everything's right. And then, it never works out that way. Stop waiting for everything to be perfect, waiting for something to happen. Sometimes that's what it is for people, and sometimes that works out okay, but that's not an okay thing to wait for. Right now I'm just kind of enjoying life. It's just fine. That's how I was. I got my whole life to go to church. Remember when I used to say that? All the time. Jessica tried to get me to go to church and be like, I got other things that I'd like to do on Sunday, like sleep. But it's okay to ask questions. The disciples doubted to bring them to, but bring them to Jesus. Bring them to a believer. Bring your questions to a believer. Stop bringing them to the world. You know what the world's going to give you. They're going to give you more of the same crap. Whatever makes you happy, man. Whatever makes you happy. Jesus says to the questioning Thomas, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus doesn't say, I know of a way, I teach a truth, I point to a life. He is the way because he is the truth of God and the life of God. And again, that's another thing that we can overcomplicate, the Trinity. What does that even mean? 3 in 1. Stop overcomplicating everything. There's only one way to God. And this beauty that we see, isn't it crazy to think that there's people that think it's a random coincidence? Random coincidence. All this beauty. The fact that the elm tree out there has 3,500,000 leaves on it that just magically sprout every spring is just some coincidence. Oh, it's just because it's got the right amount of chlorophyll. As for the other religions, you might be wondering, what about the other religions? We can't end a sermon like this without talking about the other. What about the other religions? They have a lot of good people. Not all religions are the same. Make no mistake about it. Being a good person is a good idea. You should definitely be a good person. But being a good person is not enough. Being a good person is not a pathway to heaven. In Buddhism, there is no personal God. There is no personal Savior. And I'm not a Buddhism expert, but I know that the goal is cessation of desire. In Islam, God is a distant judge. Salvation is earned and not given. There's only one true religion, Christianity, Christianity. We serve a relational God who came to serve humanity, who came to die for his creation. If you were to tell your spouse this, I know you got it, but just in case you don't, a couple more examples. I love you so much. I can't help but be sarcastic, but this is really serious. I love you, but I also want to live as if I'm married to 3 other people because all marriages are pretty much the same, and I want to keep my options open. It's not going to be good. Not going to be good. I love you. Really love you. But I also love 3 other people because I want to keep my options open. Distinct identities require exclusive commitments. Let me say that again for the people in the back and the people online and the people that are sleeping. Distinct identities require exclusive commitments. So to try and say all religions are the same is a bunch of hogwash, or I believe in something more. I believe in a creator. I just feel like there's a feel. We love our feelings so much. Let's talk about some of these things. How do I get to heaven? Find inner peace. No. Good idea, not going to get you to heaven. Do more good than bad. Yes, absolutely. See, this is faith in action. This is the book of James. This is what we talked about. Our salvation is not earned, but our life should be proved that we have genuine salvation. And if we do, all of these things are going to happen. They're not pathways to heaven, though. Be true to yourself. Oh, man, just get on Instagram and you'll find so many things there. Now, what might that mean for a Christian? You've been called in a unique way. You've been given unique talents and abilities that other people don't have. There's something you're better at than other people, but you're not doing it because you keep working this job that we talked about, 50-plus hours a week that you really hate anyway, when God gave you talents in a certain area. That's what I would say about being true to yourself. Be kind. Yes, treat everybody as God's child. Again, this guy was walking around thinking that he was a failure. He was a mistake. He didn't belong in heaven. How many people have just showed him kindness? Follow your heart's another one. That's kind of the same thing as we talked about. There's so much garbage out there on following your heart. And I believe that if you truly are following your heart, you're going to be led to where God is called. Anyway, you're going to be led to those talents and abilities. I don't even know can somebody tell me what live your truth means? I'm not sure what that means. Love wins, and Jesus says love wins. Jesus says love is the answer. Love is the greatest commandment. There's nothing else greater than someone who would lay down their lives for the sake of their people. Jesus, help others, yes. Help others, yes. Don't be disingenuous. Don't be a jerk. All of these things are so great in our proof that we have faith. Again, faith without works is dead, from James. So just thought I would quickly go through those because that slide is so good. But so Jesus as the only pathway to heaven, just like we talked about with marriage, distinct commitments. How'd that saying go again? Distinct identities require exclusive commitments. No matter how good we are morally, no matter how many of those things we can check off on our list, I do all of them. Well, good for you. We still can't erase our brokenness. You can't pay a debt with money that you don't have. Anybody ever tried to do that besides me? I've also talked about this before. One thing that I used to do, I've done it several times. It's been way over a decade. So don't, think I'm doing this now. Next time you see me at an ATM, oh, there he is, getting another cash advance. I used to get, before I knew Jessica, I was not smart with money. The least smart person you've ever seen. And I'd be worried my checking account was going to go overdrawn. This was a real thing. I didn't want that embarrassment or an overdraft fee. So I would get a cash advance on my credit card to put into my checking account to avoid that from happening. All that does is make things worse, but yet it has that temptation of like the thing that got you into the problem. Just get a little bit more of that out, put that on top, keep being a good person, and everything's going to be fine, but it's not going to erase the problem that was already there, right? Am I making a little bit of sense? There was no way out in that situation. Similarly, there's no way to erase brokenness and past mistakes. So this is where being a good person is great. Faith with deeds is what we're supposed to be doing. But it does not erase the brokenness and past mistakes, right? But the best part of it all is that this is all God's gift offered for free. No wealth required. All ethnicities. All people. No intellect, which is really good news for me. Oh, and a clean track record is not required. Your past is not so bad it cannot be forgiven. Has everybody heard that? I know that there's something in everybody in here that they did 23 years ago, 19 years ago, 6 years ago, 6 months ago that they're really embarrassed by that nobody else really cares about anymore. And there's two sides to that coin too, because sometimes there's blessings and curses in everything, and sometimes a small community can be everybody remembers, right? But there's nobody's past that's so bad it cannot be forgiven. But you got to stop running from it. Oh, and there's no dress code either. Because Jesus says, come as you are. But the performance-based religions that we talked about, just in case you need one more reminder, the things don't change, really, is what this reminder is for. The religious scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees of Jesus' time that constantly heckled him, wouldn't leave him alone, told him he was doing things wrong, challenged him. There's no way out in that situation. There's no way to ever be good enough. That was about control. It was about control then, and it's about control now. There's no way in those situations to ever be good enough. If you're on a deserted island, I know. Just one more. I don't really care. I don't care if you don't need another one, just in case. If you're on a deserted island, this is a short one. It doesn't even take up half a page. If you're on a deserted island, desperate for a rescue, so hot, don't have any food, you're tired, you're going to die. And a plane comes to pick you up. The plane shows up. You're not going to be like, you know what, there should be many planes, because how do I know that this is the best plane? You're just going to rejoice in the plane and jump on board. So, have we gone through all the slides? Because the slides are so good this week. So as we stand for our hymn, I just want you to think about that. Jesus' answer to the doubting and questioning disciples, and who you have in your life that needs to hear about Jesus. It's time to get off the fence. Jesus says things are changing, and you're not going to like it. But I am the way, I was the way, and I will always be the way. So tell your friend, as we stand for our hymn, our closing hymn, go ahead and do that. Tell your friend, yes, in fact, I heard it in church today, that Jesus is the only way to heaven. Let us sing our hymn now, and then we'll pray. Rock of Ages, hymn 3.